Well, that was an unbelievable game. It could have gone either way, went right down to the very last play of the game. And as a neutral fan, it was extremely entertaining. And if you were to compare it to the Ireland versus All Blacks game, well, the England versus Australia game was much, much more entertaining, much more enjoyable to watch. Certainly more fast paced, and it had a lot more going for it. I mean, the England fans might not necessarily agree because of the result, but certainly it wasn't a game that I was expecting, and I didn't expect it to go that way. England had a really good series against the All Blacks in New Zealand. Unlucky to win at least one of those games, and again last week, England were very unlucky to win against the All Blacks, losing by 2 points in the last minute, or in the last period of that game. So England will be feeling pretty disappointed. Let's put it that way. And Australia, they had a poor rugby championship. They won one game against Argentina by 1 point in very wet, scrappy conditions. Other than that, they didn't really look like they were too competitive against anyone. But yeah, certainly this game, Australia stepped up significantly. So let's have a quick look at the game. I'll run through sort of my thoughts on how the play unfolded and give you a few general thoughts at the end. But look, England started off exceptionally well, and they scored a really good try to kick the game off in terms of the scoreboard. There was a good chip through from Marcus Smith, and then as play unfolded beyond that, two of the front rowers made good offloads and to keep the ball alive, and you could tell already that it was going to be a much more expansive game than how England played against the All Blacks. Australia, that led to the first try in the corner, and then Australia, they scored next through a penalty where England was offside. So the score at that point, 5-3, Marcus Smith missing the first conversion. And it was a pretty relatively even contest to this point, but certainly high-paced. Marcus Smith, he made a good line break not long after that, which led to Cunningham South's second try. England, they decided not to go for the 3 points off a penalty. They went for a tap and run, and it paid off. Score was then 12-3, and looking very ominous for Australia. And after that, it was quite an exciting period of play by both teams, back and forth. I think it really kicked off, that sort of passage kicked off by when the Wallabies tried to run it out of their own 22, which they did quite a few times in the game, at any stage of the game. And Joseph Suaalii, he had some nice touches early. It was his first game for the Wallabies after converting from rugby league. And then through that period, it ended with a penalty to England at a ruck, with a ruck turnover. The Aussie commentators at that time certainly disagreed with the refereeing decision. I didn't mind it too much. The Wallabies player was certainly holding on. So England went 3 points, got an extra 3 points, went to 15-3 ahead. So 12-point lead at that point of the game. That's when Curry copped a knock from Rob Valentini. It was just unfortunate, really copped a knee, but that certainly did not help England's cause, let's put it that way. I think that was a relatively pivotal moment. I know Curry didn't play a full game last week. He came on at the end against the All Blacks, but certainly he's a key player for England and could have played a pretty key role in this game, as it turned out. Suaalii hadn't been tackled with the ball at that time. I think we were about 25 minutes into the game. He had made a few clever touches and a couple of offloads. One touch led to a good try assist after Suaalii drew two defenders, and he provided the ball over the top to Tom Wright to stroll over and put the Wallabies right back in the game, 15-10. The prop Stewart for England is just doing so well at the moment. He dominated last week against the All Blacks. You can tell he's just got a lot of confidence at the moment, and he earned at least a scrum penalty early on, and England got another 3 points. Jake Gordon went to the blood bin. McDermott made an impact straight away when he came on. A couple of little sort of half breaks, and then a proper line break, which led to a try assist to Harry Wilson. The Wallabies taking the lead 18-17, so you couldn't count the Wallabies out at any stage. They were right in this game, and they had a lot of chat. You could hear the Wallabies were very vocal around the referee. The Wallabies then earned a couple of short arm free kicks from scrums, and you thought maybe that momentum was just shifting, so it felt like England were dominant for around that first 20 minutes, I'd think it's fair to say. But then that second half of the first half, that momentum just shifted a little bit, and even in the scrum it was going the Wallabies' way there. And then the Wallabies, after one of those short arm free kicks, they put the ball up and then earned a penalty from the England player retrieving towards the ball catcher and getting in the way of the chaser. Similar to a few penalties in that Ireland versus All Blacks game, you can tell there's a bit of consistency across the refereeing at the moment. The Wallabies then decided to send that penalty to the corner, but end up with but unable to score sort of from there, and then they ended up with a penalty closer to the post, and they took the 3 points at that time, right on half-time to take the lead 18-20. So the half-time stats, offload's pretty even, 6-7. All the other attacking stats, really with Australia, as I said, that momentum did turn. Carries for Australia, England was 51, Australia 80, so definitely a lot more time with the ball for Australia. Tackles made 102 to 58 on the stats that I was looking at. Missed tackles 21 to England. England missed 21 tackles, Australia 8. Possession 41%, 59%, so heavily in Australia's favour in the end of that. By the end of that first half, territory 46-54, relatively even. But again, Australia owning that as well, and penalties 3-5, so a pretty low penalty count. But yeah, look, Australia really turned that momentum roughly about halfway through the first half, as I said, and England were unable to keep with Australia's speed. I remember last week against the All Blacks, the English sort of did fade a little bit into that late in that first half, and clearly late in that second half as well, although I did feel England were able just to sort of keep turning up last week against the All Blacks. But yeah, the English had a few disruptions, it's fair to say. I think 2 players went off for HIA checks. Did one come back on, the right winger, but Curry, of course, didn't come back. And I think there was another player that went off for a little bit too. Marcus Smith, he played really well, but his opportunities dried up as the Wallabies forwards started to gain dominance. So moving into the second half, the English started really, really well again in the start of the second half. They lifted their intensity after having a halftime break. Tom Wright made a great break. He's one of the better fullbacks going around at the moment, I think it's fair to say. And this performance by Tom Wright stands out for me. He really was another level. For me, in terms of attacking play, it was him and Marcus Smith that sort of led the charge in the game. And Australia, Tom Wright made a good break, I think, deep in his own half. Put someone else, after an offload or two, put a chip through, and England had to track back to recover that ball, and Australia charged through that ruck and almost turned it over, but England managed to hang on. So England hang on, clear it out. A little while after that, I just noticed Jake Gordon tripping over one of the England forwards, one of the tacklers, trying to draw the penalty. That's what it looked like to me. And the refereeing, certainly what it looked like in Ireland versus All Blacks, and in this game, the referees are really saying, no, look, that player's going to be there. You need to go in and get the ball. They're not really going to give you that penalty straight away, like I sort of felt like it's been happening in recent years in Test rugby. So Jake Gordon missed that opportunity. The ball went loose. England picked it up and they were able to clear. But yeah, look, the Wallabies forward play, with the ball was very good in this game. And after a fair amount of sort of good ball movement by the forwards, they had an opportunity for Jeremy Williams to score in the corner after a line out. And deciding not to go for the maul drive, they sort of popped it back blind pretty quick or sort of moved the ball around. But certainly very, very expensive play by the Wallabies forwards. And with that try, of course, the England fans weren't too happy. And I think they probably had a case here. I mean, my argument has been with refereeing decisions and sending it to the TMO has sort of always been that I think that it should, decisions like that should just go up to the video ref with a try or no try kind of statement, because I feel like so much time is just wasted for the video ref to try and overturn or find something wrong with what the on-field referee had decided. So just try or no try, because it just clears up how the video ref is looking at it. However, in this case, it probably was a 50-50 call. I mean, there was one frame in it, and you had to look at 2 different camera angles to see it. However, it was a pretty significant moment in the game, and Australia were able to take a 7-point lead. and they scored first in the second half. Not long after that, Tom Wright made another break from his own 22. I mentioned in Ireland All Blacks, the All Blacks are really struggling to clear out of their own half, but Wallabies are doing it with the ball, kicking the ball or running the ball. With that play by Tom Wright, England's chasers were sort of slightly casual there and uneven. You could tell the fatigue was sort of slowly creeping in there. And Tom Wright goose-stepped his way through. This led to a penalty, which Lolesio comfortably kicked. England turned this. It was England's turn this week to try and come back from 10 points down. So 10-point lead to Australia at that point, and England received a penalty for a clear release in the ruck. I think a little time after that kickoff, and they decided to kick for touch. The maul didn't go anywhere. It was well defended by Australia, but Marcus Smith makes a play down the blind side from that maul, and he put a perfect chip through for a try to slide home. So that was a really, really impressive play. Another key moment for Marcus Smith to sort of get involved in the game. He did miss that conversion, unfortunately, for England. 23-28 was the score. 5 points in it. England still in the game, though. And there was no one team was really sort of starting to clear away from the other or assert dominance. It was a lot of backwards and forwards in the second half in particular. Salakai Alato came on from the bench, and he was penalised pretty much in the first involvement in the game because he cut across his line to take out a chasing player from a kick, and this was an absolute penalty. At that time, it didn't lead to much, but from this, England were able to get into Australia's territory, and they stayed there for quite some time. Australia struggled to clear, and when they finally did kick it out, England took a quick throw, which isn't sort of your typical England move, but I guess they were trailing and needed to make a play, and boy did it pay off. One quick ruck and a good over-the-top skip pass, and Slightholme scored his second try in the same corner. I think he came from the other wing to get there as well. It was a great play to level the score, and they took the lead with the successful conversion. Just over 10 minutes to go. It was about 10 minutes to go at this point. England, they've done very well to get to a 2-point lead after being 10 points behind. England, they were doing everything right to close out this game, controlling the ball in Australia's half, set piece to set piece. They had lifted their intensity until a poor pass or overrun led to a drop ball, and Andrew Callaway scooped the ball up to score a runaway try and pretty much against the run of play. And if that ball wasn't dropped, England were looking pretty good there. It could have gone either way type scenario. Unfortunately for George Ford, he was involved in sort of another area at a key moment of the match after missing a penalty and a drop goal last week. 30-35 at the score at that time. Australia slightly ahead with less than 5 minutes remaining. England won the ball from the kickoff, and Marcus Smith put a perfect kick into the corner to force Tom Wright, this was I think down the blind side again, to take the ball back and back behind the try line, and that earned England a 5-metre scrum. Unreal, just key moments. England now put themselves in a chance to score a few phases from the scrum, and Itoje, he crashed over to score. Thought there was a knock on earlier, but England, it wasn't. They looked at it, but England did well just to play on, and luckily they did. Then Marcus Smith, he sneaked the conversion through only just inside the right post to take a 2-point lead with less than 1 minute remaining. I guess you have one more kickoff left, although it ended up being just slightly more than that because Itoje knocked it on from that kickoff. So it was then a scrum to Australia, so there was enough time for that. And I guess, there was just a lot going on. The kickoff would have been right on the 10-metre line if it was, but anyway, Itoje made a play, knocked it on, scrum set, and then there was a reset or two, and still one last play of the game. They needed to sort of set that scrum. So anyway, Wallabies, they chipped away with the ball in the middle of the field. The ball popped out of rucks a couple of times. Looked like England had done enough to turn the ball over a couple of times or dive on it, but Australia, I guess miraculously, still managed to hold on to the ball. And then, imagine being a referee in that situation, it would have been awful. But the Wallabies, settled just slightly. The ball came out to the backs a couple of passes later. Pretty stagnant sort of movement, but it went to Ikitau on with a bit of momentum. He drew two players. And then the offload or the pass that he made was in that stage of the game was absolutely unreal. And a great try on the last play of the game. For Jorgensen to take the lead there, and you could argue that Marcus Smith, that was possibly one moment where he should have probably let his inside man take that tackle and stay on the last man in defence. But anyway, the Wallabies miraculously get the job done and convert that as well to make it the scoreline probably looked worse than it was. So anyway, I don't see much point taking a look at the stats for this one. I think the stats were pretty even by the end. They had evened up a lot by the end of the full time, and the game could have gone either way. Let's be honest. The lead changed 4 times in the last 10 minutes. What a hell of a finish, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Angus Bell, let's just talk about a few of my comments. Angus Bell's running game is well and truly back. He was running the ball very well in Super Rugby. Hadn't quite seen it to full effect in the Rugby Championship, but he was immense in this game. And the Wallabies now, they've got 2 of the best running props in the world, probably, with Taniela Tupou as well. Joseph Suaalii's first game for the Wallabies since converting from league. He's played rugby league all this year. Has a rugby union background from school. The Wallabies, they've lost quite a few players to rugby league in recent times. Carter Gordon, Mark Nangatawazi. But Suaalii coming back the other way is going to be great for the Wallabies. You can tell he was very, very good in this game in debut. He hadn't played Super Rugby, so I don't know if he played some club rugby before this, but he hadn't played much rugby before going straight to the Wallabies. His first touch was contesting the kickoff and getting the ball back. He's great in the air. He's very tall. Offloading game, hard to tackle because of his size. And managed to get a few offloads and quite a few key sort of passes. He wasn't really tested on defence from what I can remember, but I didn't see anything where he was really caught out. So he's only going to get better as well. The Wallabies running game, it was very, very good. I would say very good. Led by the forwards running onto the ball with speed. They were breaking tackles and offloading, all forwards. The main difference in the game probably was, it's hard to, separate the teams, but probably was the Wallabies loose forwards. Their running game, their physicality in defence, the turnovers. Fraser McCright was involved in a few. Rob Valentini was amazing. And, of course, Harry Wilson as captain has been leading really well. So, look, those 3 guys are absolutely key. But the whole Wallabies forward pack were impressive in every area. Most impressive was probably that physicality in defence and ruck cleanouts. The young locks are developing really well, and I think that the forwards probably hard to separate the 2 teams in this one, but the Wallabies forwards probably stood out to me. Marcus Smith was superb. He did everything he could win the game, really, if you ask me. When it mattered, he stepped up, and England scored from those moments. But arguably, and you would also argue England had actually done enough to win this one. But unfortunately for England, they lose 2 games in a row by the finest of margins. And they've still got South Africa to come, arguably the biggest challenge still ahead of them. Australia, they start their Grand Slam tour off with a win. And after a relatively difficult time during the Rugby Championship, as I said before, we'll be pretty happy with that start. And I would say a vastly improved performance all round by the Wallabies, and this could be the turning point in Joe Schmidt's tenure as coach. And doesn't he know how to coach well against some of the European teams with that experience he's got? So anyway, a few of my thoughts. Hell of a game, thoroughly enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. And still plenty more rugby to come for this Autumn Nations series. Thanks.